This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. As always, we are proudly in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it's okay to talk. Tonight, we are 50% British, 50% Irish, but as always, 100% Giants. And, you know, don't adjust your headsets. This is a new voiced hosting. Kev, Shane and Craig are busy tonight. So the inmates are running the asylum. So apologies if this goes off the rails at any point. Producer Craig is currently at Radio Row in San Francisco, enjoying it. So he left me an idiot's guide, and this idiot isn't intending on making sure he breaks it. So with that, Kev, loads of stuff to cover tonight. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been interesting. Been obviously following a lot of Craig and the Irish NFL boys' stuff over in San Francisco, which has been fantastic to sort of follow along to. And it's Super Bowl week, so it is like super interesting. And, you know, with so many people out there, you know, you get lots of tidbits, lots of news and stuff like, so we've got lots to sort of go over this evening, especially with the Giants. At this time of season, we're kind of starting to get our ducks in a row. So I'm really looking forward to sort of delving into some of the things that's happening this week. But it is Super Bowl week. Really looking forward to it on Sunday night. What's your plans anyway for Super Bowl out of curiosity, Sunday evening?
Yeah, so I think I'm just going to watch it at home. I've got work the next day, but I'll start late. Work from home and just watch it at home. I used to go out for it. Used to make a big event for it. Been to the Super Bash when that was a thing. Those sort of things, but for me, I just tend to watch the game. If it was the Giants, I'm sure I would have been out somewhere and this, that, and the other. But this day and age, just tend to watch at home. How about yourself?
Yeah, so I'll be heading to one of the Box Park parties down at what I'm going to is at Wembley because it's quite close to home. I'm catching up with a few Stallion boys who used to play with and stuff. And I think there's 16 strong of us. Got a couple of tables down there. A couple of boys I try to watch it with every year. So I'm looking forward to that. The game should be a really good game as well, and we will touch on that a little bit later. But let us know in the comments, where you're watching the Super Bowl and what traditions you had, what you like to do for it. So it should be a good game Sunday, but we do have other stuff to talk about, my good friend.
Yeah, so let's jump into the news, shall we? And we'll start with last night. It was the NFL Honors held at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, where Matt Stafford won the MVP award in what was one of the closest votes of the night, and certainly a closest MVP vote for a few years. I think there were 2 first place votes in it, with a couple of other guys getting first place votes alongside them. From a Giants point of view, we had 2 nominees. So we had a Dart for Offensive Rookie for the Year. He was also up for the fan-voted Pepsi Rookie of the Year, which was won by Tyler Show. So they can show that award where the sun don't shine. And Tetairoa McMillan won the AP Offensive Rookie of the Year. So Dart got a single first place vote from the 50-strong panel. Ended up finishing in 3rd overall, despite a few people getting a couple of first place votes ahead of him. And then Carson Schwarzenegger of the Cleveland Browns won the AP Defensive Rookie of the Year award, with Abdul Carter finishing 4th, but did not achieve a first place vote in there. And I don't think there was maybe too much expectation for Abdul Carter getting there, but I think we all thought that Dart should be there in the voting and should be up there. Interestingly, Tetairoa McMillan had less yards than Malik Neighbours, and less yards and touchdowns Malik Neighbours did last year. So do you think voters got it right, or do you think Dart was the guy they missed on?
Well, before I fully put my Giants hat on, I will say just about Carter. I bet Carter's a bit kicking himself that Charlie Bullen was in the DC for the whole season, and he didn't, had someone else sort of calling the defensive plays, and because the way he finished the season was fantastic, and you can't take that away from him. I know he didn't finish up high in the list, but what we saw near the end of the season, the production and just the play, really gives us hope going into next season. So just have to give Carter his props there a little bit before I put the hat firmly on now. Look, do I think Dart should have won it? Hell yeah, I do. Of course I do. I thought he had a fantastic season. I think Ted McMillan, though, he started the whole season. And when you sort of go for that 1,000-yard milestone, do you know what I mean? And you're one of the key contributors to your team making the playoffs. Although, they weren't the best playoff team and their record was appalling. It's just, they were lucky enough to play in one of the worst divisions of football. Do you know what I mean? So they managed to win that out in the last week. So I think these things, managed to play the whole season, hitting that 1,000-yard milestone, he just sort of ticked off a lot of things that people look for. And it usually is a QB sort of type of award, but when you get a wide receiver putting up those numbers, playing the whole season, I mean, Dart was drafted 25th overall. Do you know what I mean? He only took over a starter mid-season, essentially started 12 games this past season, but he still went for over 2,000 yards, 15 passing touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. Not only, and he nearly did 500 rushing yards on the ground with 9 rushing touchdowns. So he just really played out of his skin. And he's another one. If he came in, if he was a starter from week 1 and went at that pace for the whole season, he would have been runaway rookie offensive player of the year. Also doesn't help playing for a bad team. I mean, although I don't rate Carolina too highly, they did make the playoffs and we were not even anywhere near a sniff of it. So you're going to get pushed back a little bit from that. But I just think, with the QB being in the premium position, with Dart's efficiency, his dual threat impact, the fact that he didn't turn the ball over that much, I personally thought he was more deserving. McMillan's stats were solid for a wide receiver, not elite, but he was consistent for the full season as opposed to Dart sort of being explosive from when he came in. Hold my hands up, absolute homer on this one. I do think Dart's the way Dart played when he took over the reins, although only for 12 games, I think he done enough, in my opinion, to win it. But I'll take my hat off to Ted McMillan, who was an outstanding player, and we all had him very highly in our sort of rankings and stuff from last season. I definitely had him as the number 1 wide receiver in last year's draft class. So Dart should have won it, in my opinion, but I think Ted McMillan is a worthy winner. Although when you compare what Neighbours did last year, I mean, Neighbours was us. Who won the offensive rookie last year?
I think it was Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, it's just maybe it was a bit of a down year for all rookies maybe this year. But I mean, but I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Not going to complain, because I think obviously we have got our guy in Dart, so I'm more than happy with that. To be fair, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that's Dart, no doubt, has had statistically the best season of all offensive rookies. So if you want to judge it on statistics for this season and everything else, Tyler Show had a few more completions and a few more passing yards on slightly less attempts, so his completion percentage was slightly better. But his touchdowns were way down, and he had no rushing upside. He scored 5 on the ground, but had virtually no 200 yards rushing. He was a goal line kind of sneaky.
All QBs are going to be mobile to a certain extent coming out of college now.
Yeah, but he wasn't a difference maker like Dart was. And if you take Dart's 500 yards, he's already without having thrown a pass, he's already got half of what Terrell McMillan did in 17 games as a receiver. Add on to the fact that the number one receiver went down and he had half a game with our number one receiver. Had injuries at the receiving corps all season to deal with, and yet he still managed to put in the statistics that he did. So you can look at statistics, but you could look at the situation he was in and say, well, actually, he was in a far worse situation. We had a hard schedule. We had the reason he doesn't have the wins on his resume that Show had is the defense let him down. He would have had 3 or 4 fourth quarter game-winning drives if it wasn't for the defense blowing leads, right? So you take the Eagles win that we had on the Thursday night game and put that against any other win Tyler Show had. It's the best rookie win of performance of the season that game. So, they got it wrong, but I'd rather not have Offensive Rookie of the Year award, but have Dart. I mean, you come into the season as well, and again, Offensive Rookie of the Year isn't awarded to the guy that you think is going to have the best career. It's what did you do this year? If there was
pretty much recency bias, especially with Shock.
Yeah, and if there was an award for who do you think is going to have the best career from the rookie class, I think you'd be giving it to Dart. I think Cam Ward, I think probably would get more looks at who's going to have the best career. I think you look at the talent around Cam Ward, and we've seen a little bit of that with the fact that a couple of the Giants staff have gone over, and we've obviously had the defensive coordinator come over, and we've gone, look at the defensive coordinator was bad. Yeah, but look who he had on his team. He had nobody on defense. You look at the Dable and Calm going over to Tennessee, going, well, where's the talent on this roster? Like yes, they've got a quarterback, but beyond that, a couple of developmental rookie receivers that shown some promise, but weren't in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. So I think, from my point of view, we didn't get the awards that the guys probably that I think Dart deserved. Schlesinger had a great season for the Browns, again on a bad team, but you can still stand out on a bad team. Schlesinger's award proves that, right? I think all in all, the real ones know, right? It's the real ones know. We're take into the fact that all of the pre-draft discussion on Dart was he was not ready to start in the NFL. Tetairoa McMillan was wide receiver 1 in what was considered a weaker class, but he was across the board wide receiver 1. Dart, most people didn't have as QB2, right? Going into big boards and things like that. So who's going to be the guy that gets there? Okay, it's he's that makes the difference. So I'm not too worried about it. The other thing that came out last night was the Hall of Fame class, and confirmed that the Eli snub. Again, the class wasn't full, so that the maximum they can bring in is 5 from the current era, and in the historic era, I think they can have up to 3. They had 4 and 1, and they have to have 1 from the other class, so that potentially the guy that got in was just the guy that got the most, not even get over the threshold of 40. So I think big changes will come with the voting system and this, that, and the other. But Luke Kuechly made it in year 2, so did what Eli was hoping to do. Adam Vinatieri, Drew Brees, who was kind of expected to go in, and Larry Fitzgerald with a 4 members of the class of the modern era class. So one to watch, but again, snub confirmed, and obviously the snub around Bill Belichick and everything else. So I think big changes to the voting system. Obviously that they are a different group of voters to the AP group of voters for the rookie awards and everything, but everyone's I think the whole system's got to be looked at and everything else. I did see Sam Monson come out and talk about he voted for Herbert as the MVP and was the only one that voted for Herbert and explained his kind of reasoning behind it. But I think strange. The Rookie of the Year award was predictable because that's where because it's the press that decide these things. You're going to look at the articles they're putting out at week 17, week 18. Kind of gives it away, and there was a lot of talk of Teto, Rowe, McMillan show in week 18. Nothing on Dart, and obviously with Dart, it's all the 20,000 concussions he's had this season. Yeah. That was the kind of media narrative, and some of what Dart's been going. I've noticed Dart this week has been putting some of that, pushing that back on that narrative in some of his interviews this week, saying, "Hey, look, I've only missed 2 games since high school, like."
And he's only been diagnosed with a concussion once.
Yes.
This whole season, although they've been very quick to sort of like put him in the test him for the protocols.
The independent doctor can make that call. So the independent doctor is always going to err on the side of caution, particularly on a player that they don't have much familiarity with. So I think Dart got up shaking his head on one of the plays, and he was, celebrating, drawing off, whatever, and kind of sort of making a move. They took that as, he's concussed, he needs to go into the blue tent. It's like, well, he's clearly not out of it. He's celebrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. Anyway, let's put the awards to bed. As the piece of news that we were all waiting for, who's going to be the offensive coordinator, and came in, and from out of nowhere, Matt Nagy, offensive coordinator.
So it was a bit of the blue, wasn't it?
It was out of nowhere. It wasn't. We had all of these kind of this person's interviewing, and we got nothing around Matt Nagy. So, he's obviously a coach that's come from the Andy Reid tree. Didn't have any crossover with Harbaugh in that tree previously, but has had experience both as a coordinator and as a head coach. So he worked with the Chiefs, and was one of the top units in 2017. Obviously, with the kind of development of Patrick Mahomes. He finished top 5 in points scored and yards gained. That got him the job as the Chicago Bears head coach, where a certain Mitchell Trubisky and then Justin Fields was his quarterback.
I mean, come on.
Now, he did, in his first season, lead them to a 12-4 record and got Coach of the Year, that infamous title that means you're going to get sacked in the next few years. So he then had a couple of bad seasons, bad quarterback play, was let go, and he caught back on with the Chiefs as the offensive coordinator for the last 2 seasons. Now, at the Chiefs, obviously, he wasn't the play caller. Andy Reid is the play caller. He's more of the guy that communicates the message and gets the thing down there. But one thing that kind of stands out for Matt Nagy, and maybe there was a lot of negativity around this hire, saying, I did see someone say, well, one way not to be able to blow leads is never to have the lead in the first place, and that's what they're going for with hiring this offensive coordinator. So, but he's a very clever pass game coordinator. He will use passing concepts that will stress defenses horizontally and vertically, and we saw some of that talk around Todd Monken, how he wants to defend every inch of the grass. We do the same. Matt Nagy certainly does the same in that kind of thing. We'll use RPOs, quick reads, motions, use spacing and tempo to help get exposed. Really good for quarterbacks who like to play off schedule, out of structure. And when you hear those kind of things, you go, well, that sounds like Jackson Dart, right? So Jackson Dart was, some of his phenomenal throws were moving out of the pocket on the run, play broken down, hits Wandale on that big pass down to the left sideline, obviously can take off and run with it. So he is described as someone that doesn't necessarily bring a specific scheme, but it's certainly someone that will be a bit of a play designer, will borrow from different systems, adjust it based on his personnel. And I think, it's quite an exciting thing. So, again, not a name we expected to hear as the offensive coordinator, but what are your first thoughts on the hire, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, initially I was shocked because for some reason I just had Cliff Kingsbury sort of nailed on for the position, like I think a lot of people did. But having a few days to sort of think about it and stuff, the more you think about it, the more you look into it, the more you kind of go, oh, this actually could be a great fit. I mean, some of the stuff I was thinking about, he obviously has pedigree. Do you know what I mean? He's 14 years coaching on the Andy Reid's tree. He comes from a championship-winning system. And my first line of my notes for today was ideal for Jackson Dart. His sort of schemes suit Dart's mobility and improvisation. And he's got experience about developing young quarterbacks. So I'm really sort of keen to see the quarterback coordinator bond that they can sort of develop. What I really love about him is motion heavy, really creative. So in that sense, he could be perfect for Malik Neighbors as well. Do you know what I mean? Because Malik Neighbors is such a playmaker. Too often in the past, I think they would just line people up and just play the play. Everyone knows, put a bit of motion in there can get Jackson Dart to read the defense better. Also gets Malik Neighbors moving all over the field, not just outside, inside to outside. Create mismatches to sort of gain really big plays. So stuff like that, really, really excites me. Do you know what I mean? And he's, although he didn't call plays with Andy Reid, he still is an experienced play caller. He's got he's got a head coaching background, which is good. I mean, Harbaugh's just bringing in top level experienced guys into his coaching into the coaching staff. I think again he brings structure, he brings innovation, and he brings a winning culture. So these are stuff that I can get behind, and I'm really interested to see can sort of Dart and Neighbors be his sort of Mahomes and Tyreek Hill type combination. I just think it's one of those hirings where it's just a smart, sensible, makes sense, high ceiling sort of acquisition and hire. And I'm actually, the more I think about it, the more sort of excited I am for the potential of next season. You could always go for the QB coach, the up and coming one, but I just think Harbaugh is trying not to be too flashy here with a lot of his hires and just hit fours instead of going for sixes. Do you know what I mean? Just trying to get the ball on the ground, pick up his singles and doubles and a few fours and stuff like that. And then hold off hitting the sixes or home runs, whatever analogy you want to use, depending on what you're listening to, or take your points and the goals will come. So for me, it's just it just makes sense the more I think about it now. I wanted the sort of the flashy coordinator and stuff like that, but sort of trusted, tried hands, and we'll get on to in a minute why it makes even more sense for who we brought in to be an assistant and to help in the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and maybe one hidden advantage in this is Matt Nagy's standing in the league probably means we ain't losing him for a head coach role next season. He'd need 2 good seasons as the offensive coordinator before someone thinks, we'll give him a second go at head coaching job. I think he's a sort of guy that's going to be around the season. Now, if it goes terribly, I don't think Harbaugh's the guy that's going to keep a guy on for too long. So I think if it doesn't work out and it does go terribly, obviously, I think this has come with a strong recommendation from Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Harbaugh being an Andy Reid tree guy as well. Although, like I said, they've never crossed over in the kind of structure. But I think there's some element of, well, I'd take Andy's recommendation on this guy. And, obviously, I think Monken was the guy that we thought didn't think he
was
would get the head coaching job. And this was kind of the scramble, right? Who do we get to fill this role? Another interesting thing I wanted to highlight, there was no tip-off in the press pool about Matt Nagy. I think maybe Art Stapleton the night before said don't rule it out. And I think that was more, rather than any kind of specific tip-off, I think that was just more Art just, being, well, this could be a thing. And, there's a name out here that makes sense. So maybe it's the first time that we've seen some of these front office leaks being addressed with some of the other moves. And does it give you hope that maybe there's that front office is already starting to come together and gel and all get in line? Because this wasn't telegraphed.
Oh, 100%. Like, it's definitely the Harbaugh effect, isn't it? I mean, like, I think he's aggressively cracking down on leaks coming out of the Giants organization, because we've been a reputation, like you said, like everyone knew who we were picking in the draft, everyone knew who we were sacking, who we were hiring. I mean, Todd Monken was an obvious hire. Like, people that wasn't leaked that he was number one choice. Everyone just knew that. But yeah, so I mean, I definitely think he's come in and he's definitely having a crack down, and he's making changes, sweeping changes, and we absolutely cried out for that. And obviously Harbaugh carries a lot more weight than a lot of head coaches we've had in the recent past. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, like, it's all positive for me. Like, like especially with the draft stuff and things getting out, and there was always news, and we always knew. We always had a feel. You followed the right beat writers. You kind of knew the lay of the land with the Giants. And I'm liking this new sort of like keep things tight, keep things in house, and not get things out there when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and the other piece of news, as you alluded to earlier, is we've made another hire on the offensive side of the ball, and that's Greg Roman, former Chargers, as most recently offensive coordinator, but previously Ravens offensive coordinator under John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh.
Oh, wait, I think I've got the right.
I nearly dropped it earlier. I nearly dropped it earlier. I thought, hold on.
John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh.
Yeah. So John Harbaugh has hired his former OC, Greg Roman, as something that is titled Senior Offensive Assistant. Now, I think Matt Nagy's criticism is his inability or his lack of creativity in the run game. Somebody who has the opposite criticism, has a great run game mind, running quarterback, great understanding of how of getting a run game going, but someone that struggled with the passing side of things as well. So I think the idea that Greg Roman's been brought in to be a running game coordinator, to kind of help out across the offensive staff. Again, another guy that's had 2 offensive coordinator positions and just dropped, he's taken a kind of a step back to maybe rebuild his credibility, and obviously a trusted lieutenant in for John Harbaugh in the building. So I think an interesting move, but a sign of, well, we're bringing some of the guys in that are going to help set the culture. Again, if you pair these two together, do you get the perfect coordinator with the run game being looked after by Greg Roman? Your thoughts, Kev?
Oh, I absolutely love this. I wouldn't have liked it if he was the OC, because I think his style of offense as a whole is sort of a bit of a dying breed now. It's sort of on its way out. But if I turned around to fans and I said, look, the last 5 or 10 years, if you could choose between the Chiefs passing offense or the Ravens run offense, what would you like? And, you'd make the choice. And I'm telling you now that you can have both of them essentially on the one offense. I mean, I think it's a really perfect complement with Nagy's offense. I think, he had some really good power zone runs and play action, whereas Nagy is very pass heavy and less run, but less play action. But I think in this day and age, you need play action as well. You need to be able to run the ball. You need to do play action to be able to open up the passing opportunities for Dart, but also open up the passing lanes, running lanes for Dart, for him to be able to make some yards when he needs to. I mean, he's got decades of NFL experience. What was he, the AP Assistant Coach of the Year in 2019? He will bring up physicality, do you know what I mean? And the offensive line will love that. Like I said, he's been with Harbaugh for a good while. I think I read somewhere it was, I can't remember what article it was, but it said Greg Roman, the run king. I think, do you know what I mean? As in that's his bread and butter.
Do you know somebody whose foot's feeling a lot better? Cam Scarbough's going to love this hire, right?
Well, like we said, the Chiefs, I was saying, could Nagy be the sort of Mahomes, Tyreek Hill for Neighbors and Dart? Well, they never really, no running back really stood out for the Chiefs, in their offense. But you think about the Ravens and the way they run the ball, and who they've had, any Ravens sort of running back in the last 10 years is sort of guaranteed fantasy points week in, week out because, they just put up numbers. So Cam Scarborough and his running style as well. I'm really, really looking forward to this. And it will be sort of interesting to see what type of offensive line when we go after now. Will Illuminor come back? Will they look to bring Linderbaum in? These are all things for us to discuss before free agency, which will be interesting. Yeah. But I just think, like I said before, just a really good compliment having both of them there. And I think, with Roman, Nagy, Harbaugh, I think we could have a really good, balanced, physical offense. Pound the rock, but spread it around the field as well. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that type of football?
And you'd say about which offensive lineman, what type of wide receiver, and Wan'Dale Robinson probably fits this scheme really well with this kind of, get guys schemed open, bit of screen, bit of kind of quick game in there. Might be a guy that actually fits the scheme really well, and do you want to let that guy out the building? Maybe discuss that in a little bit later. Another hire that was made more on the front office side was Dawn Aponte, SVP of Football Operations. Now, this is a major front office move for the New York Giants, and I think anyone that gets appointed in the SVP of Football Operations is a big thing, but specifically for the Giants, because this is the role that Kevin Abrams has been in for a very long time.
Very long.
Dawn joins the Giants from the NFL League office, where she was the chief administrator, which is essentially the person that liaises with all 32 teams, was a key negotiator on the CBA that was done in 2020, has announced draft picks as the kind of commissioner gets off to do something else. She'd be something that comes out as draft picks. If the league, if a team wants to get a hold of the commissioner, it's Dawn that you get in touch with and kind of have an initial discussion and framing of where the conversation might go. So someone that is clearly connected across the league. She started as an intern with the Jets in 1994 before coming full-time, has got qualifications in both finance and law. In May 2001, she was promoted to the salary cap assistant and then later the manager of football administration. She worked quite closely with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick in their kind of that kind of time as well, over those years as well. She then moved back into the league office as the VP of Labour Finance for the National League, and I think again that was the first. I think 2006 there was a CBA as well. I think it was just an extension of the existing CBA, but there was a CBA done at that time as well. She then had a short stint with the Browns and the Dolphins, again where she was part of the same front office as Joe Schoen in the Dolphins, but again was reporting directly to ownership, directly to the GM, directly to the ownership, doing the kind of very similar role that the Giants are going to ask her to do now. And she most recently had interviews with both the Chargers and the Jets GM positions, the last two hiring cycles as well. So someone that's looking to get to a GM role has probably come back into a team organization because she wants that kind of credibility for the GM rather than being out of touch of the league. Role is obviously a slightly different role instead of a day-to-day management of team. But it has that kind of business contracts, finance side rather than a scouting GM that maybe Joe Shane's a bit more of the scouting side of the GM tree. Interestingly, another note as well, Aponte was the inspiration for Jennifer Garner's character in Draft Day. So that kind of female executive role, obviously very loosely based on real life, but that kind of was the inspiration for the role. So first major front office move for the Giants could be a sign that the new era of the Giants isn't just talk. Have you got hope that maybe some of the contract mistake, Hudson, are over?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think this is a great appointment. I mean, she is the highest ranking woman now in the Giants of football operations. But like you said, she had over 15 years with the Jets and the key roles with the Browns and Dolphins. So she knows how to roster build from lots of different organizations. But I think the deep NFL experience, managing cap contracts and this going through all the CBA issues, I think is invaluable for her to have a real oversight for all the leagues and see for all the teams in the league to see their inner workings and stuff like that. Can only benefit us kind of going forward. She does replace Kevin Abrams, has been there for a while, but I kind of feel that side of the operations department needed sort of a bit of revamping, bringing sort of like more modern cap creativity ideas. We've kind of our cap's good at the moment, but it wasn't always. And it will be interesting to see like how we structure things going forward. But I think it's a really smart hire. Obviously coming in with extreme professionalism, very from what I've read everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Disciplined culture, smart. It's definitely just I think an added bonus. And she wants to progress. You can obviously see her wanting to become a GM down the road. So getting back into a team specific sort of role will only help that. And there's
also a GM that I know that's only got a contract that expires at the end of the next season.
I mean, you're 100% right, but I think there's definitely space for both of them. Like you said, I think Joe Sheehan on the actual sort of like scouting side of things, and he's revamped the scouting department as a whole, has kind of kept him his job to a certain extent, because I think Harbaugh has really liked what he's done, but he wants to put his stamp on the front office. And I think this is not a power move, but I just think it's definitely a move to go, okay, I'm bringing in someone who I hold in really high regard to work alongside you in different aspects. I think they'll work together on contracts and negotiations and stuff like that. I'm really interested to see how it goes. And it's, a lot of time, these sort of front office moves, come and go and people don't pay too much attention. But I do think, I'll be keeping, paying a wee bit of attention to this one and see how we go in this offseason, because this offseason is massive.
Yeah, and you're talking about a guy that's been, although he's not had the say as GM, Kevin Abrams has been there negotiating some of these contracts, getting some of the and obviously delivering what the GM has asked to, and there was a clear front load or back load a lot of the money with a Gettleman, and Joe Shane has clearly got a different attitude to some of these contracts and things. But obviously, we know the Giants haven't utilized void years. Now, is that because we haven't had a franchise QB for a number of years? And now that we've got a guy, we can kind of start opening that up if we choose to. Or is it because again, there's when you're using void years, what you're talking about is putting signing bonus over an 8-year stretch, and when it's only really a 5-year contract. Mm. When you put money into signing bonus, that money as cash has to be locked up in a bank somewhere. So that involves the Maras, the Tishes, getting that money out of their liquid assets and putting it in escrow for the player for that kind of period. So again, some teams, some owners don't do that. Again, what have the Giants owners just done? Sold 10% of the team off and had a big cash injection into their personal wallets. But that means they do have that money available to invest into the team as well, and put that in escrow if they want to go down that route as well. So whether that's part of it, whether it's just about the mess ups around Saquon Barkley's negotiation, the franchise tag of Daniel Jones and subsequent, or not Daniel Jones and a subsequent contract. And obviously, we've got some big contracts to negotiate with our pending free agents, rumblings that we might talk about in a minute around Dexter Lawrence. And obviously, Andrew Thomas is another guy that we want to stay a Giant for the rest of his career, and will need to be thinking about extending in the near future. And obviously, the earlier you do it, the cheaper it is. So we'll see what the impact is on that side of things. But certainly, upcoming draft, maybe we want to trade. She's got contacts in all of the teams. And we saw from what's been opened up over across the teams, a lot of teams have put YouTube videos out of kind of what's going on in the draft room. And you can see it's not just about the GM having a contact in another team. Sometimes it's coaches, it's area scouts, it's front office staff that go, I know somebody in that thing, let me get a call, let me get onto the phone, because I'm trying to, there might be 12 other teams trying to call about a trade while our team is on the clock, and you get into the front of the queue might be the difference in you being able to make that trade and not make that trade. So yeah, interesting that she'll have contacts in every building. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that helps us get things over the line. And I'm sure many agents, players, familiar as well. So yeah, interesting hire. Cool. Right, moving on. I wanted to talk about some. So that's the end of the news. And I'm sure there's loads of other stories as well. Given that we are. Radio Row and some of the content being put out. Craig supporting the Irish NFL show and some great content there and some interviews. There was a Pat Leonard interview the other day as well from them. So that was a really interesting chat. And Craig did ask Pat about Jermaine Illuminor's status. And so, yeah, give that a listen when you get a chance. But I want to talk about one player in particular. So obviously, this is John Harbaugh's roster. He's going to bring Harbaugh to New York. And one thing that you kind of see, especially when you're trying to set a culture, is you bring players from where you've been. You bring some guys in. You bring some guys that... So not only do your coaches get the message out there, but your players, your captains, or even just the vocal guys in the rooms are getting that message across as well. So I'm sure we'll see a a turnover of the roster in some degree, and it might not all be at the starter level. It might be guys down in the room. I think Singletary is maybe a guy that was a locker room guy, that was a culture guy. He was with Dabo in Buffalo. He came to New York. He's one of those guys that maybe has that ability to get the message across. Gunnar Olszewski, another guy that was in Buffalo and then in New York, a guy that helps get the message across. So before we go into that kind of thing, maybe the first decision that they're going to have is what to do with Kayvon Thibodeau. So Kayvon Thibodeau, 5th overall pick. Have we seen the ceiling that we were hoping we could get from the 5th overall pick from Kayvon Thibodeau? I don't think so. I think he's been a very good player and clearly a starter in this league. But is he a Pro Bowler? Is he a difference maker? Is he he's going to come off his rookie contract? 5th overall pick is not a cheap rookie contract, but it's still a salary control that you have around that guy. Obviously, he's a fully under contract this year, earning $14.5 million. He will become a free agent in 2027. So he will walk out the door at the end of this season after earning $14.5 million. And arguably, we talked about it earlier, Charlie Bullen got the best out of Carter at the end of the season. Do we think Carter is the second defensive end now on the depth chart and Thibodeau the third defensive end on the depth chart? And I know we might have a new defensive scheme and find a way to get all three on the field at the same time. But the kind of contract number that I'm seeing quoted for Kayvon Thibodeau would be 4 years, $83 million for an extension. Now, the Giants can do that. The Giants can open cap space to do that. I don't think there's intention for them to do that, given the Abdul Carter pick. And obviously Burns under a big contract. If you were to put Thibodeau under a big contract as well, that would be a lot of money into the edge position that typically you don't see teams do. Now, I know we've got a rookie quarterback and a very good backup on a very good deal for the team. But I actually think maybe trade is the more likely option. And I'm not seeing team. I have the last 24 hours, 48 hours. I've seen this discussed a little bit, but I think it's likely that Kayvon Thibodeau will be traded. So trading Kayvon Thibodeau would save $14.5 million. So that's Illuminor's contract. That's getting close to Wandale's cap number for the season. Certainly would be allowing you to get Flott back and some other players for that money. And given that we're talking about a player that might be the first one off the bench, the 13th man or 12th man on defense in terms of contract, do you really want to be paying a guy that's on your bench when you're losing starters thing? So I think, and I think a day two pick is fair compensation. So maybe something like the Raiders at 67, so top of the third round, Tampa Bay at the middle of the third round, and maybe a pick swap next year depending on performance, that kind of thing. But obviously the Giants don't have a third round pick. Being able to pick up another player in that kind of thing, I think is pruning. Now, if he was to play for the Giants next season and he was to go in free agency, he would be very high in the compensatory pick formula, but you wouldn't get that pick until the 2028 draft. Milton Williams, who went from Philly to New England, was on similar money to what we're talking about for Kevin DeBell. He's earned a third round pick for Philly as part of the thing. But obviously it's if we're going to have a big free agency next year rather than this year, that could be wiped out anyway. There's no guarantee that you won't lose that compensatory pick in the list. So I think you take the guaranteed third round a year early and use that to build your thing. So Kev, thoughts? Have I convinced you? Have I sold you on maybe it's time to trade Kayvon Thibodeau?
Have you convinced me? Is he a good player? Yes. Do I like him? Yes. Do I love him? Not sure. Is he a starting edge in this league? 100% yes. Is he the third edge on our team? Yes. Everything he says makes sense. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is a brand, and I think he will want to be the guy for a team. He wanted to be the guy for us, and that just hasn't quite worked out. So I think he will walk in free agency. I think he would, even if we went to the table and offered him a healthy contract, I think he would turn us down. I think he wants to go out this year, flash and show what he can do, and then hit the free agency market and get paid. So thinking about that, thinking about what you said, if we could, and also, he earned $14.5 million, that if we were to trade him, we get all that back. So it's completely comes off the books. So you're telling me if we could get a second round pick for him was what I would like. We could turn that into a starter and then use that money to bring in a starting offensive lineman or a starting player somewhere else. I would have to tend to agree. I think I'd have to sort of go for that deal. I think if someone comes in, even San Francisco or something like that comes in with a late second or something, and maybe you could do a pick swap somewhere or a late pick the year after or something. I think be able to turn that in, use the money in free agency to bring someone in, a player that Harbaugh wants along with Shane, and then we will get into draft stuff later on, not tonight, but we will get onto draft stuff as the draft comes up. Like that day 2 pick, turn that into a starting off-ball linebacker, which there are plenty of in this draft. Are you telling me could I get 2 starters basically for Kayvon Thibodeau? Then I'd have to go, yeah, I mean, we wanted it to work. I'm not saying it can't work. I just think that he could walk in and be a starting edge on most other teams. We're just really, really fortunate to have 2 players at the level of Burns and Carter at the moment.
Yeah, and there's a lot of buzz around like Max Crosby wanting to leave the Raiders, and so for them to trade Max Crosby, they've talked about he would get a similar haul to Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
So they would have an abundance of picks, obviously, to pair with their number 1 quarterback. But maybe them taking on a veteran edge to replace, so he could go and be the guy in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. And he would be the guy.
He would be if Max Crosby is traded, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the compensation again. And like you said, you'd get 2 starters out of it. 1 in free agency because of the money you can spend, and 1 out of, like I say, this draft, certainly off-ball linebacker. I think we can get a starter in the 3rd round. It's you could probably get if you were looking for a starting center, which I don't think we are, you could probably get a starting center in the 3rd round this year. Tight end's quite strong in that kind of middle range as well. So I think that's what we're saying. We're taking a luxury player that we all like, and if he does play his 5th year, I won't be upset. And even if he ends up with an extension in New York, I don't think I'd be upset. But hasn't lived up to his all-pro billing or potential. But he's a guy that I think has more valuable as a trade piece than he does on the team next year. And that's probably more of a damning thing on roster construction and the development of other players that Kayvon Thibodeau is being a victim of here, rather than necessarily. If you compare his other 1st round pick from his same cohort, Evan Neal, we can't wait to get him off the team, right? So I think seeing him go is sadly what I'm expecting, hoping Not
And
hoping,
John Harbaugh's got no
but
ties
hoping
to.
because that is a smart
Yeah.
business decision. It's not
It makes
it's
sense.
not an emotional decision. We're keeping him. It's a smart business decision to move on from Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, definitely. Harbaugh's coming in with no ties to these players. At the end of the day, the only thing Harbaugh wants to come in and do is win football. And, he will work with Joe Sheehan to build a full roster to be able to do that. And if you are a little lopsided in one position, or not many positions we are, to be fair, then kind of like it makes sense to use those assets. And as you said, if we kept him and we had a 3 sort of spear attack with Thibodeau, Burns, and Carter, then fair play. Giants have won like that in the past. But at the moment, our roster is so void of talent across the board that being able, like you said, to turn Thibodeau into 2 starters on this team would be huge.
Yeah, okay. And then we very quickly end up into free agency. And we talked the last couple of weeks about kind of there's some cut candidates as well, Bobby O and John Runyon's potential, and Gano, I think, is gone. Singletary, I think, will be gone. So we'll start to see maybe some of the priorities that John Harbaugh has around the roster with some of those cuts leading up to the thing. Because even if he designates someone a post-June 1 cut, and I'm not sure we have anyone that really benefits us to do that kind of cap manipulation, because just the way the contracts are. But that'll all be announced heading into free agency anyway, which is, I think 9th of March or something is the tampering. 9th and 11th is the
tampering period. Which is a month away. 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. We're 5 weeks away. So you've obviously got before that the franchise tag. Again, I don't see any of the guys. I don't see Wandale getting the franchise tag because it's like 30 million for the receivers these days. I don't think, again, the tackle tag for Jermaine Illuminor is that left tackle number. So again, I don't think that comes in there. So I don't think we've got any franchise tag kind of decisions for us. But obviously, other teams we'll see how the market's shaping up for other free agents, priority free agents. There is a chance a Linda Bub who's been linked to us gets re-signed by the Ravens. There's a chance, very small chance, he gets franchise tagged, or he may be the lesser used transition tag. There's where they get the kind of option to match the contract. Or give up a second or third or whatever it ends up being type pick. So I think it'll be interesting to see where we go. But I'm kind of thinking that maybe we'll see some free agents retained, but we'll also see that those Ravens coming in. And maybe some players that are ex-Ravens, former Ravens. Jermaine Illuminor, of course, drafted by the Ravens or undrafted. Was he undrafted or drafted? He was certainly on the Ravens.
But released.
but released. But Jermaine Illuminor was not the Jermaine Illuminor he is today. But even when the Giants recruited him, because he was brought in to come and play right guard.
100%, yeah.
And the fact that we've got tackle out of him is the thing. So, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I can see us doing the similar sort of thing with a guy like Tevin Jenkins, and who's a guy that was thought was a higher prospect than Illuminor ever was. A guy that they thought, could be a tackle, has probably turned out to be a guard. But in a pinch, you could get tackle play out of him. And maybe he would be similar money to Greg Van Roten, and he's maybe an option to become at Greg Van Roten. Now, Greg Van Roten, Jermaine Illuminor, Wandale Robinson, we already talked about how the Tennessee Titans had a very poor roster, but they have the most cap room. They have 100 million of cap space, and actually they could take on a bunch of offensive players from the Giants that Daboll's familiar with, and If you look at Tennessee's situation, they've got the rookie quarterback. They want to put good players around that and trusted players around that rookie quarterback. And Robert Saleh, who's the head coach there, we've all seen what he managed to do with the San Francisco 49ers defense, which was decimated with injuries. So do they need to really spend on defense at Tennessee? I mean, they need to spend everywhere. But actually, from Robert Saleh, he gets fired if his offense can't score points, right? Because he knows his defense aren't going to give up points.
He needs to get Cam Ward cooking this year.
So could we see Wandale, Jermaine Illuminor, Greg Van Roten, who's, a mercenary that can help? But I don't think he's planning on retiring, even at 36, going on 37. Do we see those type of players go with the Dable? Some Dable's guys will go. And then who comes in from the Ravens? There will be players. Linderbaum's a really interesting one for me. So I've seen this talked a lot. It doesn't make sense to me unless you think JMS can play guard. If you think JMS can play guard, which again, the kind of knock on him is he's a lighter weight center. Linderbaum's smaller than JMS, which I don't think people realize.
Yeah. He's a center only.
He's a center only. And JMS was a center only at Minnesota, is slightly bigger bodied, but is not bigger bodied in the kind of way John Harbaugh normally likes his guards. Yeah. So I think if we were to cut or trade JMS, we'd take about a 1 million cap hit, save 3 or 4 million. So it's possible, it's workable. Obviously, we're losing Schlottman as a free agent as well. There's a potential that we could resign Schlottman as the backup, bring Linderbaum in. But I don't know what we would get for JMS as a trade. It might just be a cut. If it's going down that route, I don't think we would carry three centers. I don't think we would carry $25 million worth of centers, because the number that's been quoted for Linderbaum is 17 million APY, right? Which is a huge number to be paying a center. I expect him to be better than JMS has shown, but I don't expect him to. We're losing right guard and right tackle. I'd rather spend the 17 million at right guard or right tackle and play JMS at center than go and pay 17 million on a center and then have to find someone to play right guard and right tackle. I know Bo's there on the team, but Bo, I've seen enough of Bo that I think you could be a really good tackle in this league. You still need to grow into your frame. You need to put some NFL mass on you. You need to be able to stop that, because all they'll do is they'll just line up a ball rusher on him every single time and they'll collapse that end. A bit like we saw with Evan Neal, who couldn't handle a ball rush. That's how Bo will get found out. So I don't think Bo is. If we go down the route that Bo's our starting right tackle, I get worried. If we go into the season where Bo is our swing tackle, I feel really happy about our offensive line position. So I think there's some really interesting moves to make. Are we going to make a big splash? Are we going to go and sign Alec Pierce instead of Wandale Robinson? Are we going to make a big splash at middle linebacker and bring in a guy next to Bobby, who again could be a cap casualty? I wonder if there's a way to negotiate a pay cut for Bobby and keep him around. That might be a good solution, because I'm not sure he would get 15 million on the open market either. So I think there's an option of, hey, look, we take some money off the table. Maybe we'll give you an extension, so it kind of splits up some of that cap hit as well, and work out how to work around that one. So, thoughts, Kev? Anyone that you think we haven't discussed over the last week that you think, this is a guy that's definitely coming in, or definitely not going to be on the team? Changes in the offense and defensive coordinators that have changed your mind on guys?
Nothing. I haven't really delved into free agency at the moment, but I do think, with the JMS things, I honestly cannot see us signing Linderbaum. I would be happy for it, but I just, like you said, I just don't think it makes sense holistically in a whole picture. I don't think the step up is big, but I don't think it's big enough to pay that money and then not have JMS as a starter. Now, if you said to JMS, put on some weight, right? You have this off-season program now to put on some mass, and we want to shift you to the right side or the left side, guard that is, and we'll give you a real crack at it in the off-season and OTAs and stuff. Maybe I could see you bringing him in then. But I think I talk about the Bo stuff as well. I think Bo needs another, like you said, another season of seasoning. Another year of putting some mass on to become a real long-term NFL tackle. I think he's got the ability. He just hasn't quite got the size, like you said, yet. And that's why bringing back Illuminor in a 2-year deal would make so much sense if we were able to get that done, just to be able to do that. I mean, if you told me you bring Linderbaum in the middle, JMS was able to put on the mass needed and be able to play right guard. And then you had Illuminor on that right side as well to help him give him a bit of protection. Then I think that's sort of like a really, really good scenario.
Yeah. I think you could turn around to Illuminor, go, here's 2 years, 30 million fully guaranteed. He ain't getting 30 million guaranteed anywhere else, right? He might be able to get a higher contract number. He might be able to get 3 years for 50 million and get 20 guaranteed. But I think you go 2 years fully guaranteed. I think I think he'd stay on that sort of money, and I don't think that's a bad deal. I think getting 2 more years out of Illuminor, knowing that our right tackle and our left tackle, barring injury, are sorted, and Bo, it as the swing tackle to go. If one of those guys does go down for a couple of games, I'm okay with Bo for a couple of games.
Yeah, definitely, and the linebacker stuff, we're crying out for a difference maker at linebacker. We haven't had one in so long. Now, whether that's by the draft or free agency, I definitely think Bobby O's can play at that number. I've said it in the past. I think that will need to change. Whether it's 9 million cutting him, whether they say you take 4 or 5 off that and we'll keep you, or like you said, we give him another year extension or 2, and you sort of like add a lower APY and spread it out a wee bit. It's definitely interesting to see because we only sort of have seen what moves Joe Sheehan makes, but obviously Harbaugh is going to have such a big say in moves going forward. I'm really interested to see sort of what type of moves he does there, and we're definitely bringing in Picard, the fullback. That's an absolute given now that Roman is the.
Can you imagine Cam Scatterbo running behind him as well?
Don't that carnage! Like it's just be unfair in some of the linebackers.
And then Dart pulls it and on a read play, and the fullback lead, and the whole defense is run, and Dart's off to the end zone.
He's got the legs for it. Yeah, so I mean, the roster will look very, very different come free agency and come the draft. But that's why it's going to be so interesting, especially like you said, 4 or 5 weeks before free agency comes up. We will look into sort of like every position, who would fit the new coordinators, who we would like, what type of money you're talking. There's definitely cap moves to be made. So it's very interesting to see what the new front office looks like as well and what type of cap moves they make. So I mean, it will be a very, very different looking New York Giants to take the field come September this year.
Yeah, and I think just the final one that I've seen mentioned, so Spotrac have done some analysis about contracts and rumors and this and that. Another guy that pops up there this week, and I don't think he will because he's got a tattoo on his arm and it'd be silly, right? So Dexter Lawrence, he's got no guaranteed money kind of left on his deal. Good numbers to earn. I don't think he wants any more money. I just think he wants some more assurance about. Thinking maybe an extension. But these are the sort of ones that teams tend, unless it benefits the team, this is the sort of one that leads to camp holdouts and things like that. And I think that's the last thing that we want. So there's always a potential of a trade in these scenarios. I think we would get good compensation. I don't know if we would get the market compensation that Giants fans would think, we'd have him in that Mike Parsons, Max Crosby bracket of 2 first-rounders plus, and I'm not sure we would get that for Dexter Lawrence. But I think it's something to be aware of as fans and track. I think he's a guy that we've got to have on the team. I think you find a way to help the team's cap number out this year, help move some money around, give him some more guaranteed money, and work that out to a team benefit as well. Like I said, we've got we haven't got any big contracts that we need to do from our rookies that need resigning. So yes, Neighbours, but he's going into year 3. Yeah. It's unlikely you're giving him an extension coming off his injury and everything else. So you're going to see at least another year from Neighbours, and probably want him playing his 4th year and maybe mid-season of his 4th year, knowing that you've got him on the option for the 5th year before you look to extend him.
You can't extend him. You can't extend players after the 3rd year anyway in rookie contracts.
I think you can do it after the 3rd because I think they've got to complete their 3rd year before you can extend them. Yeah. And then so I think obviously not this off season, next off season, you want some freedom to go big on free agency. Because I don't think you're going to go big on free agency this year. I think you're going to shore up your roster. Obviously, we need to make some decisions about starters. So if we're losing some starters, we need to sign some starters. So this year's free agency is only going to be, we've got 4 holes to fill. We've got to make sure we fill that, and then the back end of the roster with some Ravens guys. I think it's 2027 where you have the big free agency.
And we have more money than there, a lot more money.
Yeah. And obviously, and if you can do some cap moves that help that out this year as well, that next year you're ready for that big free agency in 2027 with the view that 2027 is the year that you'll really first, where you think you can compete for a Super Bowl. Obviously, lots of things got to happen, healthy injuries, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's realistic as Giants fans to necessarily see the turnaround that we had in New England and Seattle and these kind of turnarounds that we've seen in teams happen in 26. I think 27 is a more realistic time frame that we can see that happen. And part of the reason as well is we've obviously lost a draft pick for 3rd round, which was used in the dart trade, which is, again, as a trade compensation valuation, you think 3 first-rounders for Trey Lance. Look at what we gave up for Dart. Looks phenomenal, but it does mean that we only have 2 picks in the first 100 this year. And a lot of talk about the draft so far has been it's a weak draft, but I think it's strong at positions that don't have high positional value, which means you don't really want a top 10 pick, but you want a number of picks between 20 and 99, and we only have 1 in that frame. So again, trading Kayvon, trading down, getting some more picks in that first round. We're not looking we're not looking for a quarterback. We're not looking for an edge, but it's strong at linebacker. There's some good corners. There's some good interior linemen. There's some good, let's say, linebackers, tight ends. There's some really good, and I think it's I've sort of looked at it as a get your guys kind of draft. So you can't really look at big boards and go, well, that guy's a 4th rounder or 5th rounder. If you like a guy and you're on the clock, be prepared to take. If he's at the top of your board, take him. Don't worry about whether you think you can get cute and wait around, because I think consensus is in teams going to be all over the place this year, because there's lots of guys that are role players that are, take is it Terrion York, the linebacker out of A&M? Fantastic linebacker, but he's like 5'8", and he's got like 2 percentile arms, 2 percentile height, and you're like, the tape says this guy is going to be a really good NFL player, but the measurables say this guy ain't going to make it in the league. And you go, well, actually, yeah, but I think I could if I get a 2-down linebacker out of this guy, he'd be the best 2-down. Like, so there's guys like that you can fill roles. If he fits your scheme and it fits your role, I think there's going to be guys like that. I think we're going to need more picks in that window. So how we go about acquiring that, trades, trading down in the draft, trading players, like we said with Kayvon, I think there's something there. Obviously, we'll get more into in the coming weeks into free agency and then into the draft guide that we will work on. There's going to be a lot more talk about those guys, and the my guys, I think are going to be really interesting this year. I think they're the guys that the top 2-3 wide receivers maybe not so interesting, but the guy that comes out as this is the guy I'd really love on the team. Those are the guys I think are going to be really interested in this draft. And so we'll have some fun talking about those guys over a couple of weeks. Moving on, there's a big game this weekend. And as you know, if you're not partnered with the league, you'll hear the term "the big game" rather than the Super Bowl being mentioned. Kev, what are your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
I think, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a cracking game. I know the Seahawks are favourites with a lot of people. I think the spread's -4.5 for them. They are the stronger team. They've got such a good defense. That defense is absolutely phenomenal. The way it runs around. I mean, talk about picking up a good safety last year. Umamori, how good has he been playing this year? Their offense is so balanced. Sam Darnold has just found his spot, hasn't he? From the sort of the way he started his career, seeing ghosts for the Jets, bounced around the league at the Panthers, and being able to go to San Francisco and Minnesota, and now he's found a spot with the Seahawks, and just really bringing out the best in him. And Kenneth Walker being able to run the ball at will. They've just been really dominant in the NFC as well. I think their defense can really get after Drake May. And I'm really interested to see how he deals with that, because Drake May, I think, has been fantastic, and rightly so, been in the conversation for MVPs and stuff like that. But I don't know how much he's been actually challenged under pressure, being put under pressure. His offensive line has played so well of keeping him clean and allowing him to get the ball out on time. But I think he could be under real pressure. I'm really interested to see how he deals with it come Sunday night. And Seahawks have been really good on the road as well. They played really good away from home, and they're obviously playing in a rival stadium, Levi Stadium at San Francisco. So yeah, I think I am leaning towards the Seahawks for this game, because I just think they've got the better form going into the game, and I think they've just got an all-round better roster. And I mean, they've also got my two ND boys, two Notre Dame boys, in Man Crush Julian Love and Riley Mills. But also they've got ex-Giant Leonard Williams, who's talk about like a fine wine. He just keeps getting better and better with age. He's having a phenomenal season there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I've got a couple of mates as well. Shout out to Barry, Seahawks fan, and CJ, Patriots fans. They'll be all over the game this Sunday. And so I don't know who I want to win, but I think the Seahawks might just edge it. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think this is probably the best Super Bowl matchup we've had for a few years. I'm not saying it will necessarily be the most exciting game for the casual. I think this will be a low-scoring, a close game. I think it will go the under on the. I think it's 44 is the total, so it's not a particularly high total anyway. But I think 21-17 or this kind of thing. And like I said, I do think the lines are maybe where this will be won, and I do think the Seahawks defensive line will be able to get to May. I'm not certain the Patriots defensive line will be able to get to Sam Darnold. I think both offenses will struggle to sustain drives. I think.
Day for the punters.
Yeah, I think it's, the field goal kickers might be busy. Even though I said 21-17, maybe it's a play off that with the field goals, a couple more field goals in the game. Obviously, conditions-wise, it's not particularly difficult stadium weather to kick in. So I think, I think low-scoring game. Although I'd love a high-scoring game. Being an offensive background player, you always love high-scoring games and everything else. But I think the strengths of both of these teams are the defense. Expect some creativity from. I think I saw a prop for over 2.5 players to complete a pass, and I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely on that over 2.5. So I think a flea flicker from the Patriots, or some sort of creativity in there, I think is kind of expected. But yeah, I think low scoring game. But I do think the Patriots might edge it. And
are you going to give me a prediction?
So I think, like I said, 21-17 Patriots.
Very good. I think it'll be a one-score game. I just think the Seahawks will have a little bit too much. I think they'll manage the game really well. I think it might be high scoring early and then calm down in the second half. So I'm going to go with a 27-20 win for the Seahawks.
Yeah. See, I think it spreads 4.5, or around 4.5. It moves quite a lot the Super Bowl week, but I think Patriots nailed on to cover. I think nailed on for a cover. I don't see them losing by more than a field goal. But I just have a feeling that they'll sneak it, and I do think Drake May has been good. I know that there's a talk about the strength of the schedule and everything else, but when they came into our place and played us, and I know we were helping their schedule look weak, but we played Denver really close. We beat the Eagles. We played some of the best teams in the league, and nobody blew us away like the Patriots blew us away. And they've played some bad weather games on the way to the Super Bowl that level the playing field out. So although they've sneaked through, I think they are comfortably better than their kind of playoff records. So I think people are sleeping on them a little bit. But I also think maybe the Seahawks are the most slept on one seed for a number of years. Like they've a bit like Indiana in college football, right? Who managed to put an undefeated. I mean, they won national title and everyone's got like that. But when was the last undefeated national champion and as an underdog going into the playoffs, right? So I think Seattle are somewhat similar, right? I know they've not necessarily been underdogs in games, but nobody's talking them like this is a Chiefs or a Patriots of old.
They've just quietly gone about their business, haven't they, in a professional-like manner?
Yeah, maybe it's that West Coast bias thing and everything else, but yeah, I think I do think it's, as a NFL fan, as a diehard fan, I think this is a matchup that you can enjoy. I'm not sure it's necessarily a casuals one. I think there's a lot of people putting their Chiefs jerseys away and getting their Patriots ones out, because they're the bandwagon fans that were all Brady fans that now Mahomes fans are getting their Patriots jerseys out for this game.
I mean, will we see passing on the 1 yard line that may lead to an interception?
Yeah. I did. So the JTT charity cup, fantasy cup, they do a kind of pick'em over under, guess what color the Gatorade's going to be, this kind of thing, and half the pool goes to charity, and you can win half the pool. So I'll drop it in our Twitter, the link. I think they're looking to get about 100 people sign up, so a prize pool of sort of £400 for the winner. We put it out and then saw that will there be a pass attempted from the 1 yard line, but was one of the things he said. I should have put that on there as a guess, but yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to answer that question. I might just have to pass on it. Anyway, that's all we have time for this week, and we'll be back next week to cover who won the Super Bowl and obviously with the Super Bowl winner, the draft order is set for that very first time. So, will we get the mock draft simulator out? That would be a tease. Kev, anything to add before we knock it on the head tonight?
No, just I'm really glad we could get on tonight. I thought we did quite well, me and you. I really enjoyed the chat. Actually, it was nice. Looking forward to the game Sunday. And then not put the season to bed, but it will be nice then to officially, the season's over, we can start to look forward to our new offensive and defensive coordinators and what makes them tick, and sort of delve into what type of players they might want in free agency. Because like I said before, that's going to come around quick. So I'm looking forward to delving into like who's free, who's on the market, who will likely be re-signed, tagged, XYZ. So there's a lot to do in the offseason. And yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into that over the next few weeks with you boys.
Yeah, and I think we did a good job. But how should we end the podcast, Kev? I tell you what I did miss. I did forget to ask people to like the stream, to subscribe. If you're listening on audio, give us a review. How many stars, Kev?
Oh, yes. 5 big ones, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and appreciate all of the time everyone gives listen to us talk about something we love. So until next time, signing off. Goodbye. Let's go, Giants.